Hello, and welcome to Crucial Conversations for Radical Educators. I'm Dr. Jessyka Ramirez-Holden, and I'm excited today to join the webinar to discuss my workshop session for the Equity Ingenuity Conference. My session is called She Leads, Reimagining Leadership with Middle School Girls of Color. In this session today, I will offer a short teaser of what will to come, key takeaways, and few practical next steps that you can apply right away. The goals for my session, and just to note, my session is based on my dissertation research, which I will be referencing throughout my workshop. Uh, but my main goals are to discuss how girls of color experience and define leadership, and then also ensure that you leave empowered with at least one takeaway, something that you can apply, one action item to support the leadership development of our girls of color in middle school. I'm going to go over our purpose and why this workshop matters. But first, I want you to think about what comes to mind when you hear the word leader. It's a question that I've referenced throughout my research and something that we grappled with as we studied our girls. So why does this workshop matter? First of all, leadership identity starts early, and middle school is a critical window for us to really mold and shape and mentor our students. Second, our girls of color are leading now, but often invisibly. So the way that they think about leadership, the way they define leadership, is different. And they're often leading in spaces at home, on a sports team, at school, in different capacity. And third of all, most importantly, if our girls don't see themselves as leaders now, they most likely won't step into leadership later. So the bottom line is we can't afford to lose our girls of color from leadership pipelines because when women of color, we know this, when they lead, our systems become more just, inclusive, and equitable. So it's really important that we ensure and affirm that our girls are leaders now. So I'm going to give you a little bit of context with my research study. This question of how do middle school girls of color perceive themselves as leaders was a question I asked the girls throughout the study because I was not just trying to figure out why they weren't leaders. I was trying to figure out also the ones that said, yes, I am a leader. I also wanted to know why and how. So my study at a glance, it was a qualitative study. I studied 15 girls in middle school, 6 through 8, five from each grade level, 6, 7, and 8. It was really important that they were willing to participate and they had parental consent. I used 3 collection methods, journaling, interviews, and focus groups. And my framework was based on social identity theory. And I was the researcher at the time. I was a 6th grade teacher at the school, but the girls were not my direct students. So these were my 3 research questions. I wanted to know, how do they envision leadership? How do they perceive themselves as leaders? In what context, what environment? And then what factors influenced their leadership development? And like I said, social identity theory was the foundation of my research study. So these are questions that we'll think about throughout the workshop session. Who does society expect to lead? Which leadership styles are considered acceptable? How do race, gender, and age intersect? And then you, as a participant, where did you learn what leadership looks like? And as we know, leadership is shaped by society. So I'm going to pause here because I do want to note that my research study was unique, that I used a autoethnography. So I started with my own story and did my own journaling. An autoethnography allows researchers to use their own experiences and cultural backgrounds to examine other systems. So in looking inward, I was able to then develop my research questions. And my process was iterative. So I did reflection and data analysis throughout my process. So first I started, like I said, with my own story autoethnography. So I did my own journaling. I developed my research questions from that. I had the girls journal based on those questions. And then I analyzed that, came up with the interview questions, analyzed that, came up with the focus group questions, and so forth. So this is kind of my cycle. So pausing here, what messages did you receive about leadership growing up? So this question is important because we're going to do our own reflective process and kind of do your own autoethnography and looking at your own leadership journey. So this question I'll ask participants to really think about what does leadership mean to you? How do you define it? And what messages did you receive growing up about being a leader? And to give you a little teaser into my research findings and what they said they need, um, the first one was they need a clear understanding of leadership. Like, what is it? And define. In school, leadership is not usually a topic that's talked about. Sometimes it's a club or something you can do later, but it's not something defined, especially in middle school. So from their stories, from their journaling, their interviews and focus group questions, from their focus group answers, this was one of the things they said they needed to know, like what is leadership? Um, so in my session, you'll see what the other four findings are. And at the end of my session, I'll do a call to action and ask participants to think about what is one way you will intentionally affirm our leadership in girls of color. So like I said earlier, it's important that our girls are affirmed and that they know that they are leaders now, in order to pursue it in the future. So what are you going to do to make sure that happens? So next steps, think about the call to action. Register for the conference. Register link is right there. And come to my session. Again, it's called She Leads Reimagining Leadership for Middle School Girls of Color. If you're interested in, if you work with middle school girls of color in any context, if you're just interested in learning about how they perceive themselves as leaders and the research behind that. Also, if you're just interested in leadership tools to use with students, I'll be able to share some tools and resources and recommendations moving forward. So thank you again for coming to today's webinar, listening or rewatching. We really appreciate your support. Thank you.